Well, hello everyone! I am back with a new video. I know it's been a while. No excuses except for the fact that I have been building a tiny home. My husband and I converted a school bus into a tiny home, which is where my new studio location is. Lots of bus and travel content is over on my new travel channel. If you're interested in that content, jump on over there. Today we're going to be diving into the Artistro palette. I actually got the Artistro Watercolor palette about 9 months ago, and I have been using it pretty extensively on both wood and paper. On Twitch stream, I did my first initial Artistro paint palette unboxing and review, so let's jump right into that first. Side note, I have a Paint My Face audience redemption on Twitch, which is why for a majority of this portion I look like a tiger. So I got their watercolor kit. I really like the packaging. I think it's really pretty, and it has all of their social media on it, which I thought was really creative. This is the box that it comes in. 40 standard colors. It's got the 4 fluorescent, 4 metallics. It also comes with a pad of paper, eraser, sponge, pet brush, pencil, and a water brush pen. So it comes in a little tin, which is why I think it's great for traveling. It comes with watercolor paper, but I don't know. It's probably cold press. I don't like using cold press. I know a lot of people do for watercolors, but yeah, it's cold press. Oh, they're individual sheets though. That's kind of cool. 140 pound, 10 sheets. Not bad. So when you open it up, it comes with this, which I am so happy about. It's a little chart so that you can fill out the colors and do gradients, and then keep it inside the tin so that you know which colors you want to use. This is cool. Like, I wish more brands did this, because usually when I get a new paint palette, I have to make these myself. The fact that they include it in the palette is just, it's a bonus. It's a good bonus. The other cool thing they do is they include this plastic sheet to protect the paints from the supplies. Then it serves a dual purpose. It also has all of the color names with the numbers. I love it. This made me really happy when I opened it up, because they didn't advertise this on Amazon. But this to me is an extra added bonus that I really like. My first impressions on the palette itself, color-wise, is I feel like a lot of these are really dark. I usually use really bright colors, so like this half of the palette is not stuff that I think, well, I use the metallics, but this half of the palette I don't think I'm going to use very much, but we'll see how the colors look. I am a little disappointed that this is plastic. I was hoping that it was something a little bit more sturdy, because I feel like this is going to crack over time. I'm going to use their brush just to see how it does. I'm going to do the metallics because I love metallics. Here's an interesting thing. The colors on this are not in the same order as the colors of the palette. These are, though. Ooh, I like that color. I don't know if you can see. There is a slight shimmer. It's not as pronounced as it looks on my camera. Ooh, I really like the bronze. That's nice. I do find it interesting that this teal color is apparently supposed to be a light green, which I do not agree with. That is definitely a teal and not a light green. I disagree with their naming. So far though, the quality, the pigment is really impressive. So even though I'm a little irritated with color names, I'm pretty happy with the paint so far, but we'll see how it does on wood. So that's away from the light and then towards the light. Maybe when I fill it in, it will make sense why they did it the way they did it, but it really doesn't make sense right now. I'm wondering if this was from an old set, because they also have a color on here named Flesh, which is a very poor name choice in my opinion. Oh no, it's right there. But that looks orange. Okay, I have to test this one out. Let's see if it looks more tan and it's just because it's compressed that it... No, that is definitely orange. I would never use that for a flesh tone. Weird name choices. Let's see what it looks like watered down though. Maybe it gets more... Oh, okay. You know what? With less pigment, it can be used as a flesh tone. Here, I'll show you guys up close. It looks very orange over here, but this is a nice flesh tone when it's got the water. Ugh. I see what they did. They're keeping the 30 original colors, then the metallics, then the fluorescents. Whereas on this palette, the fluorescents are switched to the metallics. And also, these colors are bet you in front because they were blocking the, that's what I would guess. Payne's Gray and Deep Black. Yeah, they added those in there. Okay, that makes sense. Because the colors as you're gonna order them are from different sets. There's the original sets, the metallics, and then the fluorescents. That makes way more sense. Although I don't understand why they didn't just organize their paint palette that way. But probably because they wanted a warm to cool gradient. If I had to guess, they probably wanted their brighter colors to gradient down into the darker colors. Visually, that looks pretty. Look at this fluorescent yellow. I am super impressed. It looks like a highlighter. That is gonna be so fun to use. All right, so all naming conventions aside, I think this is gonna be my new recommendation for a travel palette. Just my initial impressions alone. I'm not even using that much, like I'm not even scraping off a lot from the cake, and I'm getting really good coverage. You can tell in my voice I'm surprised, because this palette isn't that expensive, and it's working better than my Winsor Newton palette. Hey there! Just popping in real quick to remind you, if you are watching this video and you enjoy the content, don't forget to subscribe, and also head on over to the community tab where I put polls on what you want to see more of on this channel. I love hearing y'all's feedback. So just to recap, I've got my color chart here. It's actually completely filled out now. I took the time over time to go ahead and fill this out. I actually am pretty impressed with the Artistro paint palette. I really appreciate that the metallics have like a nice shimmer to them. The highlighter colors have a nice highlighter color to them. I just think that it's a really good palette for the price point. I do have a couple of critiques on it. So let's go ahead and jump into those critiques. So as you can see, my palette has a lot of wear and tear. My first critique is that I ran out of white. So you will see there's some globbed white here. I actually have been replacing the white with the Winsor Newton designer white gouache, which is what I prefer to use in my pieces anyways. But I did use the Artistro white, and I actually was really impressed with their white, but it ran out really quickly. And as of the making of this video, you actually cannot order the cakes individually. You have to order a whole new palette if you run out of colors, and that I think is a really downside. However, they did include the lovely card with the color numbers on it, so I think that eventually they may offer the cakes. It's just for right now they don't. But I've just been replacing colors as I go, and once I get to the bottom of some of my favorite colors, I'll probably just order another palette and then bring them into this palette and keep that one as a backup. Other than weird naming conventions, I really enjoyed the range of colors available in this palette. There's only one thing I feel is really missing, and that is a good yellow ochre. I never realized how much I used it until it wasn't there anymore. The Artistro yellows in general are lacking. I struggled to get the saturation I was looking for until I started adding some of the oranges into the yellows, and then I got a pretty decent result. My last critique about the cakes is that certain colors have a strange consistency after being wet or re-wet. A good example is the burnt sienna. It started to deteriorate in my palette. I'm not sure if this has to do with the binding agent, the filler, or the actual pigment itself, but it's only happened on 3 of the colors so far. These cakes do use a lot of water, but since I'm used to working mostly on wood, I was used to this method of painting. If you focus more on wet techniques, you may want to keep a spritzer bottle with you while using this palette, just to keep it nice and fresh. I'm gonna keep repeating this, but where the Artistro palette really sings is that it is heavily saturated and heavily pigmented. That may not work for every single watercolor artist, but since I'm not really a traditionalist, I love it. I think the Artistro paint palette is perfect for a travel palette. It actually has replaced my Winsor Newton travel palette, which I've highly recommended in the past. This is my new go-to palette for being on the go, especially as I'm traveling now. I have a travel sketchbook. I do a lot of painting on the go in weird locations, and when I'm out backpacking or out exploring or hiking, I really need a good palette that I can take with me, and that is where this really sings for me. For the filming of this video, I have added back in what comes with the set, but I'm going to show you a few different examples of how I change out my palette and I make it a little bit better for me personally. So let's talk about the water brush. The brush pen, I actually really enjoy the brush pen. You can see I've got a little bit of water in there so far. It's more so for me for when I'm on the go and when I'm traveling. I don't necessarily use the brush pen itself. I actually use this as a way to carry water with me. So I drop the water into the colors, and if I have to do a big wash, I'll use it, but I really actually prefer not to, just because water brush pens over time, they have a tendency to get really nasty on the tips, and I don't really want to have to replace it. I think it's perfect for carrying water and for laying down base washes, and that's what I prefer to use it for. Also, you know, if you've seen my art, I prefer the tiny, tiny, tiny little details, and that brush tip is just far too big for my needs. However, the other good thing I like about this pen is that the push for the water is actually further up the pen. Now, a lot of the other water pens that I have, the push is part of the part where you hold it, which is convenient in the sense that you can continue your flow of water while you're using the pen. However, I find that sometimes with some of the other watercolor pens that I have a very tight grip on my paintbrushes, which is not a good thing, but I have it. And so sometimes I accidentally push too much water when I'm using the watercolor brush pen. With this one, that doesn't happen because the push is a little bit further up. So I kind of like that. I can preload my brush, and then if I need to, I can load a little bit more. Sometimes I'll hold it like this and I'll push my index finger on the push. Just either way, I actually like that. It's a little bit different from some of the other watercolor brush pens that I have used in the past. So I think it's a very versatile pen and I enjoy it. The Artistro palette comes with a pencil, a regular 2B pencil, which is great. I hate carrying a sharpener around, and in this palette there is no room for a sharpener. I just don't like having to sharpen my pencils. I think it's annoying. So I actually take this and I replace it with a mechanical pencil. I've got tons of these. I carry them around. I use them all the time. And so I pop that right in there and it fits in there perfectly. You could also replace that with if you don't feel the need to have a pencil, you could replace that with another brush, which I do have coming up next. So the Artistro palette came with this brush. Honestly, I'm not impressed. It's okay for, I like its small size. I like that it's shorter. I do like that. It feels very comfortable in my hand. However, and it's okay for washes and general blocking in colors. The tip kind of fell apart pretty quickly. You can see here that the brush kind of flayed out at the end. It didn't maintain a nice tip. And so for me personally, it just doesn't work for the fine details or for fine lines. It kind of flayed out a little too fast for my liking, but that's just, you know, cheap brushes versus expensive brushes. That's where you're really gonna see the difference. I think it's great for the palette. It's great for big swashes of color washes. I still use it and I still leave it in the palette. But what I also do is I take my favorite 000 Winsor Newton sable, finest sable brush, tiny, 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 because of course I love the small details, and I take this brush and I actually place it right on top in the palette like this when I'm working. And when I close it up, it closes up because there is a gap there, and so you could even put a couple of other brushes as well, but I usually just bring these two brushes, the biggest for washes, the smallest for basic blocks of color, and then the tiniest for my details. And that tends to work for me for my personal sketchbook. I did leave the sponge in here. I think the sponge is kind of subjective. I don't actually use it a lot for working on the paper. I actually more so use it to wipe my brushes on. You can see it's kind of dirty. But I also, one of the other changes that I do to the Artistro palette is that I add in a paper towel. I've got a nice clean one here. Obviously, usually it looks like a hot mess because I use it until it is completely covered and useless. But I fold up a paper towel and I put it in here in the palette, and I have my extra brush and I close it up and take it with me. There's actually one other step to this. When the palette is dry, it's obviously not a big deal to just stick the paper towel in there, but just to protect the paper towel and give it a little bit more longevity, I also carry around the plastic insert that came with the palette itself. So then if the colors are still wet after I've finished painting and I gotta pack up early or whatever, I can just pop the plastic piece on top, and that covers the wet watercolors. Pop the brush, pop my extra paper towel, close it up, and then it's all ready to go. I love that there's extra space in there that I can throw those things in, because some of the other palettes I've used in the past, there really is no extra room between the lid and the palette itself for you to fit other things in. So I think that's a huge win with this palette, and I really enjoy that. The last critique I have is about the eraser. I do think that this plasticky eraser is not the best. The eraser quality is just not there. I personally would not use this unless it was just like something I really didn't care about, because you're gonna get those smudgy lines. And I instead recommend using a Staedtler plastic eraser. These are a little bit more expensive, but really not too bad, and they make a huge difference when you're erasing your lines. The Artistro eraser is just slightly too small for as compared to the Staedtler eraser, but I just have bits of Staedtler eraser left over from ones that I've used in my studio, and then I just fit those in there and they fit just fine. And that's how I modify that palette. Now my only last critique about this palette is that, and you can see I've mixed some colors here, and that is because there is really no room to mix colors. There's very little room. And so if there was one thing that I personally would change about the palette is you have this space already available, I would put some sort of plastic insert or divot with bubbles in it that could fit over and fit in just like this does, but has the ability to be a mixing palette for colors. I think that that would make this palette absolutely perfect. Other than that, I am really happy with this palette. Obviously there are, you know, the issues I mentioned about specific colors being better than others, but for the price point, you cannot go wrong with this palette. I genuinely recommend it, and I've had so much fun with it. It actually has been really surprising for me, and for those of you that have joined me on Twitch, you have heard me talk over and over again about like, oh my god, I can't believe how vibrant this color is for this kind of palette. Like, I really have been converted, and I actually use this palette more than I use my Winsor & Newton watercolors, which are the professional grade, like higher up watercolors. I love this palette a lot, and I use it a lot. There's just certain circumstances where obviously the professional grade watercolors really shine through, but this is a great alternative, excellent alternative. If you're interested in getting the palette, I have two links below. The first is to buy directly through Artistro. That is an affiliate link. If you purchase through that link, you do get a discount. I'll put it in the description box. And then also that allows them to know that you came here from this video. So that's kind of a cool way to do it. And then they also do sell on Amazon. So I have an Amazon affiliate link down there as well. So just so you know, if you click on that link, I get a little bit of a kickback from Amazon through their affiliate program. That helps me to keep making new videos. If you're interested in more cheap art supply reviews, you can check out this playlist, which has all of my videos that I've made that are review videos. Thanks so much for those of you that have stuck around and helped me to get to 4K subscribers. Y'all are amazing. I'm gonna try my best to be more active on YouTube in the future. I miss it so much. Okay? Alright, you guys. Until next time, remember to create, love, and travel on. I'll see you guys later. Bye!